Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Diversion Authority Finance Committee meeting for July 27th. First order of business is to call to order and to call a roll. Don, please.
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
I'm here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Redlinger.
Here.
Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Reeds.
Here.
Ms. Madriga.
Here.
Mr. Sprague.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Don. Item number 2 is to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2022. They are in your packets that have been distributed and are on page 3 of the packet. So moved. Thank you, Mayor. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peterson. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2022 as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3 on the agenda is to approve the order of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. It's been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4 is the approval of the bills.
I was hoping Ms. Gayhart would be here today, but in her absence, I will step in once again.
Thank you.
The bills total $10 million this month. $6 million of that are to Cass County Joint Water Resource and $2.5 million to the city of Fargo. The balance to, the normal vendors that we have in the past.
Any questions on the bills as presented?
Where is the Cass County work being done? It says the Cass County did a reshaping on something. Is that bypass of the inlet? Joel, do you know?
That's 16.
Item 3. It just says roadway reshaping aggregate surface.
Yeah, I think the mayor's asking about the Cass County Highway Department. Okay.
Okay. Just curious where you're building.
That's all I have.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes?
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Sprague.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item number 5 is the finance report. It's on page 19 and has been distributed and is in your packets.
The current balance at this time is 135 million. If you have any questions.
Are you going to leave us speechless or?
Just wave you. Yeah. I can introduce Ms. Gayhart right now.
That's better. It was 103 or 106 last month, so that's good.
Going up. That's a good.
Are there
thing.
any questions? Committee?
And maybe take this time to introduce Ms. Gayhart. She's the new finance director replacing Kent Costin. So she'll take over for these meetings. I won't be coming anymore.
Just like that.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All those in favor of approving the financial report? Do I have a motion first? I do
So
have a
moved.
motion. Mayor Mahoney moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Carlson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the finance report as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is the Executive Director's Financial Report. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'll draw your attention to the annual revenue status for this month. Another 7.3 million for a total year-to-date of 59 million. You can compare that there with our 2022 approved cash budget. Again, some of these revenues are reimbursement revenues that come in as we have expenses. Other are pay-as-you-go with the City of Fargo sales tax and the Cass County sales tax. So nothing out of the ordinary, pretty typical, compared to the last few months, but certainly could answer any questions if you have any.
I noticed on your first, there, thank you, on your sale of assets, last month it was reported how many millions of dollars of land that we own that we don't need for the diversion. What is the process, or when is the timeline that we'll start selling some of those assets?
That's a great question, Chairman Dardis. So right now, I'm just off the top of my head, I think we're somewhere around 35, 40 million of land outside of the footprint of the diversion channel and the southern embankment. A lot of those properties we are currently using with negotiations for property owners where we still need property. And so we are hesitant to deem them asset lands, which would then start the process of the asset land policy. So for the time being, we're continuing to consider them as project lands that we can use to negotiate with landowners that we are currently working with to acquire land for the footprint. And we've been getting a lot of great feedback from being able to use some of the property that we own outside the right-of-way in order to trade or make transactions that way. So it's a great tool for our lands program to be able to utilize. There's also land that's directly adjacent to the channel that as we see more and more of the developer's work plan, we can deem some of that as asset land and dispose of it. But we're still waiting on some of those specifics, because if we own land and it could help the developer to gain more efficiencies in their construction practices in a certain area, we would make that available to them and try to realize some sort of a savings or a credit back that way. So I would say, for the time being, in the immediate future, we'll continue to hold on to the land that we have outside of the right-of-way footprint. And of course, if dynamics change, we'll let the committee know. But it is, a revenue generating for us right now, as we do have leases on all these properties. And you can see some of that revenue generation coming in. Minute in comparison to the rest of our revenues, but still it's a cost positive or cost negative thing for us. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Please continue.
All right. I'll move to the level 1 status here. Very typical from the last few months here. You can see a majority of our expenses are in the lands and impacted property mitigation category. We are now sitting at cost to date this year of 19 million. We'll continue to see that rise. There's a number of property settlements that we're going through eminent domain that our lands program we're able to bring to the Cass County Joint Board tomorrow. So again, you're going to continue to see in the months ahead that number continue to rise. I think we're probably tracking to be pretty close to that 77 million by the end of the year. So I just want to give some congratulations to our lands program. They've been really doing a lot of great work lately. And then the other categories here, you can see the River Stage 37, that's the City of Fargo projects that are ongoing. I believe those are progressing very well, Mayor, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, the remaining would be more of the soft costs, and then the third-party MOU mitigation. Those are utility relocates that are ongoing in preparation for both the southern embankment and the channel construction. So, I don't know if I necessarily need to dig into the level 2 detail unless there's any specific questions on this, since it's so similar to the last few months.
Committee have any questions? Mayor?
Joe, I know the sales tax has been going ahead of predictions of what we had. Where is that reflected in your reports?
Yeah, so on the, Paul, if you could go back to the revenue page. And so keep in mind, Mayor, that these numbers are behind because it takes a few months for the sales tax to come through. And so it's difficult to sit here in July and compare, you know, the 12 million fiscal year to date with the 38 expected. But if you were to be tracking this on a month-by-month basis, we're tracking ahead of what we planned. So we do intend to come out above the 38.8 million for the sales tax from Fargo this year.
Okay.
Paul, if you could go back to just the level 2 overall stats. Thank you very much. So again, this is kind of a newer sheet that we have that shows all of our different financing instruments, and it shows, you know, cost to date, balance remaining for the overall program. And so I just want to make a couple notes here. You can see, you know, our total cost to date at the 812 million versus the 2.098, which we're tracking against at the program level. And then you can see fiscal year to date, 38 million expended of our anticipated 194 million cash budget. So things are looking good. Nothing out of the ordinary, but certainly open for questions if anybody has any.
Questions from anyone? That is not an actionable item. It's for information only. We'll move on to item number 7, please. Contracting actions, Mr. Paulson.
All right, Mr. Chair, thank you, and members of the Finance Committee. I have 3 contracting actions for consideration today. I'll start with the first one. It's Task Order 1, Amendment 0 with Sprint Communications Company. This is a task order for the removal and relocation of a large fiber optic line. This is a pretty major line. It's a coast-to-coast line. It does have a DoD contract on it, so it only shuts down every 2 years. And so we need to have Sprint move this in anticipation of, I believe, the Southern Embankment project, so we can keep that on track. So we negotiated with Sprint. The result is in your packet, and certainly open for any questions that you might have.
Questions, anyone? Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the second contracting action is Change Order 1 for Work Package 50F. And this is our property demolition contract that we have with Schmidt & Sons. They're currently moving a number of houses out of the upstream mitigation area. This pertains to 2 homes that were planned to be moved, were sold basically by the contractor. And then this spring, it was evident that the houses could not be salvaged due to winter damage. And so the change order is to basically pay the contractor to demolish these under, you know, a normal demolition, haul them to the landfill and dispose of them, unfortunately. But it is a valid contract, and we are recommending approval for the change order amount. So certainly open for any questions on this as well.
Questions on this item?
Mr. Paulson, is that multiple houses or just one house?
This was 2 houses.
2 houses.
Yeah.
Additional questions?
Okay, and the third contracting action is for new software that the authority will start to utilize for our document management. As you can imagine, we get an immense amount of documents working with the P3 and trying to manage those, and so we're moving to Infinite Text as the provider of our document management service, and so it's a new agreement with them for $118,000.
Move to approve all 3 items.
Questions?
First,
First, Mr.
Just a
Steen.
question on the last one, thank you. Say, is this a new document storage than we've had in the past? The name didn't seem familiar.
This is a new product, and I'll maybe defer to Paul Barthel, because the PMC will ultimately be the ones that are utilizing this, and so I worked with them to work with this company on this contract. So.
So one of the biggest challenges we have, both as the PMC and eventually the authority will have during the 30-year term, is to track and manage all of the changes to the project agreement. And so the PA project agreement, this document system or this software will actually create a live document out of that. So rather than sifting through about 3,500 pages of PDFs and trying to find how things are interrelated and connected that way, this software basically provides those links, provides that efficiency, and it also provides updates so that we are looking at the most recent and final copy of the document itself.
So the previous provider or a vendor for this, is it the same vendor, just a new document, a new system, or is it a different vendor?
This is a whole different system. We've been utilizing Aconex
That's
to
what I
do the
remember.
document storage. So, and that's basically an electronic, I don't want to call it a filing cabinet, but it allows us to do the searches and manage all of the documents itself. Affinitex is basically for the project agreement and the legal ramifications with that. So this is very much focused on just the project agreement, since we'll be utilizing it for any claims, any changes that are requested by the diversion authority or the developer. So we need to track those changes, make sure that everything is tied back up and tied together once it's through. And then once we get through construction and we get to the operation and maintenance period, that 30-year term of the P3, it'll be utilized by the authority during that time frame to enforce the project agreement, to make sure that any changes during that time are also included in here.
Thanks.
Additional questions? Mr. Peterson?
Not that this probably matters, but the summary budget allocation has the estimated cost and the budget allocated the same. It looks like the preliminary estimate was lower. Again, I think it's a typo. If you go to PDF page 57.
I'm sorry, I did not hear your question, Mr. Peterson.
Sorry, so PDF page 57, again, I'm sure this is nothing, but just in case. Within your budget allocation chart, you've got 82, 11, 1, 11, 1, 11, 1 for a sum total of X. Budget allocated 82, 12, 2, 12, 2, 12, 2, same value. And I'm guessing it's the 18,630 because that's what you have here and that's you have in your chart too.
Yep.
So I'm sure it's just a typo, but
Yeah, you are correct, that is a typo.
okay.
This is the correct amount of the contract.
Okay, then the follow-up question, which is what led me to this question, looking at this chart. Is there any ongoing software? Are we going to need the product after the project is complete? And is there any software licensing fees we have to talk about in the future? Like, are we committing to $12,000 a year for the next, well, perpetuity?
Pretty much,
Oh,
yes.
okay,
Yeah, so this is for the first 2 years, and then there's ongoing maintenance of this software. So this is the initial startup, bringing our static documents into this dynamic system, and then providing us with the maintenance for the next couple of years.
but beyond that though?
Beyond that, it will be up to the authority and staff and the committees to renew if they find value in it. So
Okay.
we didn't want to tie this to a long-term contract, a 30-year
That's-
contract.
Thank you.
That's
That's exactly why I'm asking to see what we're
Yeah,
committed to.
so we needed to at least get a couple, 3 years into it to make sure that it was doing what we hope it will do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Additional questions? Okay, we'll go back to all three of these items. It's a pleasure of the committee if you want to take them one by one or all at once. Is there any other discussion on any of these
We
items?
move to approve all three motions.
Mayor Mahoney moves to approve all, three. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Steen. Been moved and seconded to approve the contracting actions as outlined by Mr. Paulson, items 1 through 3. Is there any other discussion? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Sprague.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
yes,
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Next order of business is the board approval of any 2022 cash budget changes. We have nothing for approval, Mr. Paulson?
Nothing to report.
All right, very good. Moving on to item number 8, other business. An update, City of Fargo work plan for projects bid in 2022. We'll call on Chris Bacagard for that. It's on page 58 of your packet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, I'll cover this fairly quick today, and then if you have questions, we can certainly back up a little bit. But as we talked about a couple months ago now, City of Fargo has been actively bidding several of their ongoing projects related to the diversion. They did receive bids on 3 of those projects since we were last here. 2 of the 3 bids came in as we anticipated. One of them, however, came in slightly over what the engineer's estimate was, to the point where we basically used up all of our construction contingency in the bid phase. So we're here today asking for a small incremental add to the contingency for the project to allow the city to do their normal contract administration. That was for the lift station projects. As you'll see, the FM 22-C1, we're asking for $375,000 increase to that work plan. And then in addition to that, the city also has one more project that they're working on, more of a maintenance project related to South University Drive. There's been some erosion along the riverbank. That's been a concern for one of the flood walls that's built along University Drive. The city had originally had an estimate for that work that was based on an evaluation done a few years ago. As they were producing the plans, they realized that there had been additional erosion and we needed to protect a larger area. So we have almost doubled the amount of protection area that's needed for the project. There's also been a little bit of slumping that has happened adjacent to 52nd Avenue South that we need to remove part of a turn lane and just do some minor concrete work there to fix the road back up. So we are asking for a $1.29 million increase to that work plan. Again, the city is really working hard to try to get that project bid so we can get it protected before there's more damage. We're waiting on one final permit, and then the city will move forward with taking that to bids as soon as we obtain the permit, hopefully next month, but that's the plan. So I'd stand for questions if you have any related to these 2 items. These are both within the overall city work plan, and also we're within our cash budget for the year still. As we evaluated the timing of payments, we'll still be able to, looks like we'll still be able to keep the project within the cash budget for the year.
Questions for Mr. Bacagard? So with the supply chain issues that we have and workforce issues that they have, are the engineers that are involved in all these projects, are they going back, are you reevaluating that as to what our estimated values of some of these improvements are for the rest of 2022, so we're not caught off guard?
We've been working close with Nathan on those, and I don't anticipate any more. Nathan, I don't know if you've heard anything last week, but no, we've been definitely staying in close contact with the city engineering staff on those, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the request is for $1,292,500 and $375,000 for about $1,600,000. We do need a motion.
Question.
Please,
So
Mr.
this is
Steen.
strictly a increase in the budget. This is the budget adjustment, right? You said you used up all the contingency.
This is part of the overall city work plan, so it's still contained within our overall budget. We're just asking for an increase to this individual project allocation.
And these are the net dollars, because a number of the other bids came in below, so this is the net
Yes,
increase that we
this
need?
is a net increase. We did, if you remember, 2 months ago, we had made adjustments to the project. We had actually decreased a couple of the overall work plan budgets for the city. So now we've gone back through and we've netted that back in. So we're netting about $700,000 increase to the current work plan budgets for the projects. But again, still encapsulated within the overall city budget for the overall comprehensive work plan. So there's not a budget amendment that we need for this, because it's still contained within the city's overall plan.
This question, it seemed to me a meeting or so ago, we approved something where within the overall budget, if these projects just kind of wavered a little bit, if as long as within the overall budget, we didn't have to address these.
Yes.
So why are we addressing these?
Okay, so what the resolution allowed is for us to work within a 10% contingency on the project budgets. So 2 months ago, we came in and we adjusted the estimates back to within the resolution that we agreed to with the city of Fargo. So this one project came in right at the engineer's estimate plus the 10% contingency. So we're just asking for a small amount of contingency back for the city to administer the contract. If there's any minor change orders or changes, that we have the ability for them to administer that without having to bring those back here. So we slightly exceeded what we had in the resolution, so we just want to make sure we're staying within what we agreed to with the city.
All right. Additional questions?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor. Been moved. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Redinger. It's been moved and seconded to approve the updated City of Fargo work plan for projects bid in 2022 to approximately $1,600,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Sprague.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
yes,
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Next order of business is 2021 Audit Report and Governance Letter. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet, you'll find the audit dated June 27th, 2022 from I. Bailey. I guess so, nothing major to report here, which is good news. But there's a lot of great content within that audit. If you take a look in there, basically I think our financial controls are recognized as being very effective. And there was really no findings of significance found in the audit. So I guess I don't have much else to express there, but I certainly wanted to bring it to Finance Committee so you guys had the opportunity to see it. And we are going to be filing this with EPA as part of our relationship with them for the WIFIA loan. But certainly open if there was any questions from any committee members that they might have.
Questions, anyone? I reviewed it. I didn't see anything. Any other comments or anything? I'd call on Paul Barthel for comments.
Just wanted to make a note that we have asked Ide Bailey to be available at the next financial committee meeting to do a presentation, and if you'd like to ask questions directly with them. So wanted to give you this to you this month for information and look it over, review it, and then they will be here next month for a presentation.
Thank you.
So you guys have homework.
Any questions on the audit or the recommendation letter?
Yes,
Okay.
excuse me?
Yes,
Yeah,
please. Excuse me.
Thank you. In regards to the significant risks identified, are there any, is there any thought towards addressing the risks identified?
Yes, so, those are, I'll look to Paul again so I don't misstate anything, but so we do have a risk register that contains thousands of particular risks, and we utilize that as kind of a tracking, and we change the severity of those risks depending on, changing conditions and those types of things. I'm assuming the risks that were identified in the audit are also contained in our risk register, and those are monitored on a quarterly basis, right? Correct?
That is correct. We do track those, and the two major ones that were raised by this audit, one of which I think we can, excuse me, one of which I think we can actually mitigate in the next year or two through actions by this committee. It has to do with the difference between the repayment and the 30 versus 60 days for payment between the City of Fargo system and what the Diversion Authority is doing. That was one item that was found. The other one was that I don't think we can get away from unless we find a different auditor. And that's that Eide Bailey has basically noted that they're doing the audit, but then they're also preparing some of the financials for it. So those were the two main risks, or the two main items in the audit. On this one, we are tracking them within our risk register. And like I said, I think we could probably mitigate one of those risks once we get through the State Water Commission funds, and then we can be able to turn our payments back around outside of the State Water Commission funds.
Thank you.
Anyone else? This is an informational item only. Moving on to item C, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Preliminary Engineering Agreement Amendment Number 1. It's on page 97 of the packet, and we'll call on Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee. Before you, you have a preliminary engineering service agreement before the Diversion Authority and BNSF. You may be asking, why is this needed? The project, both the diversion channel and the southern embankment across the Burlington Northern or BNSF right-of-way in different areas, specifically on the diversion channel along Highway 81. There's a set of tracks, and then running north or running east-west, there's also a set of tracks that are just north of County Highway, Cass County Highway 10. And then there's also a set of tracks that are close to Highway 75, all of which need to be either raised, bridges, etc. Historically, BNSF has typically hired a third-party consultant to do the review of submittals by a party looking to relocate tracks and other items. Instead, they're proposing to dedicate one individual person and hire that person just to work with our project. So the advantage to our project is a cost savings in that we're not having them pay outside consultant to do the work, and also a single point of contact, which, given the scope of the number of rail crossings and the amount of work that we'll be asking them to do over the next 2 years, is it's a good step, very positive for the authority to have that single point of contact. We're hopeful that it will speed up response times for BNSF, and if there's an issue, whether RVA is having an issue, whether the Corps is having an issue, or whether the Diversion Authority is having an issue, there's one point of contact with BNSF. And so this agreement is between the authority and BNSF authorizing the payment of that work, and can answer any other questions. Pretty straightforward, very positive development.
I understand that we stand for the expense, but do they hire the project engineer? Is it an employee of BNSF, or do we hire?
I'm going to defer on the specific technical items to Paul.
My understanding is this is an employee of BNSF. And so they know the internal workings and can do the internal coordination for us.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shockley? All right, this is an actionable item.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a second, please?
Jacobson, second.
Thank you, Dan. It's been moved and seconded to approve the BNSF Preliminary Engineering Agreement Amendment 1 as presented by Mr. Shockley. It's in the packet on page 97. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney. Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Sprague.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
yes,
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Motion carries. Item number 9 is our next Finance Committee meeting will be August 24th. And with that, does anybody from the Finance Committee have any business they'd like to bring forward? With that, we stand adjourned.